Again, so glad that you guys could all join us this evening. My name is Melody O'Neill. I'm the Associate Admission Director at Landmark, and this is my 26th year working at Landmark School, and I was a teacher for many years at the high school, and I've been in the admission office for quite some time now, and I also am connected to Landmark as a parent as well, as it being my job. I have a son who attends our middle school and a daughter who's at public high school, but who did a number of summer programs at Landmark as well. So it's been full experience for me, and I'm really excited to talk with you guys tonight and to share information with you about who we are, what we do, our student profile, and all of the amazing programs that we have at our high school campus. So thank you so much for joining us, and I'll get the presentation up and running. Just give me a second to do that. Katie, did you want to, while I'm doing that, just again kind of run through everybody having their mic off and what we'll do after?
Your controls for Google Meet are at the bottom of the screen. So if you scroll down, that's where you can turn your sound or your microphone off. Again, Melody will present for about 40 minutes, and then we'll have the Q&A. At any point, though, if you think of a question, feel free to throw it in the chat bar, and that way we'll have a record of it and make sure to get to it for the Q&A towards the end of the presentation. For some reason, if the presentation isn't taking up the entirety of your screen, you can scroll to the middle and you'll see a push pin little icon, and that allows you to pin the presentation so that it does take the full screen. And again, we're recording this and we'll send it out, so no worries if you need to step away at any point.
Great.
Looks good, Melody.
Looks good. Everybody has a full view. Okay, great. So again, welcome and thank you so much for joining us tonight. So we're going to start talking about Landmark, who we are, what we do, our students. And so the first thing I want to mention to everybody this evening is just that our students at Landmark are really awesome, incredible kids. They are students who are really bright, well-adjusted, curious, and eager to learn. And they're really highly motivated, resilient, and capable. Even though our students may have experienced academic struggles prior to coming to Landmark, they are really wanting to learn. They're wanting to be in an environment where they can meet with success and feel like they're really gaining skills and making progress. And coming to an environment where they're taught in a different way, where teachers really understand how their amazing, creative, bright brains work, is really a wonderful thing to see how the students respond to that. So that's a really important thing to mention about our students. So in the face of having all of these strengths, and really having this amazing ability to have these big picture thinking ideas and be able to problem solve, they do have some specific struggles. Landmark, I always talk to parents about the fact that we work with a very specific and narrow piece of the pie. Our students that attend Landmark fall under this kind of umbrella term that we refer to as a language-based learning disability. So probably about 70% or so of our high school students have a diagnosis of dyslexia. When we think about dyslexia, we're talking about struggles with phonological awareness in terms of the ability for those word attack skills for decoding, that ties to encoding, the spelling piece, reading fluency. So about 70% or so of our students are pretty classically dyslexic in terms of having a specific reading disability. We also have students at Landmark that may have what's called a disorder of written expression. They may have all these great ideas, but that ability to organize and get those ideas out on paper for the writing process is a real struggle for a lot of our students. Some of our students have some real language processing issues. They understand the language coming in and the comprehension is there, but that ability for oral expression, that retrieval and output may be an issue for some of our students. And the executive function piece is a very common buzzword nowadays that, kind of everybody has this label of executive function disorder. When we talk about the executive function with our students, we're talking about that ability to plan and organize, that ability to initiate tasks, that ability to shift sets from one thing to another. So for example, if they're starting homework and they have to kind of get going with an assignment and then switch to something else, and being able to have those skill sets in place to organize and plan and do all of that. So that can be a struggle for a lot of our students. And then in terms of the working memory and or processing speed, that's where a lot of our students have some discrepancies with, again, how bright they are, but maybe their working memory and or processing speed is not commensurate to that big picture thinking and comprehension ability. So that's how we look at this language-based learning disability umbrella. Really, in layman's terms, it means that our students are struggling with aspects of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And that is really it in that very narrow piece of the pie that I was referring to. Our students are, as I said at the very beginning, very bright. They're average to above cognitively. They are pretty well adjusted. We're not a therapeutic program. So if a student has more primary needs around social emotional development, we may not be the right fit. And for students who maybe have more difficulties with pragmatic language relating to peers, or if they have some needs that maybe would fall more in the category of what we call like an ASD diagnosis, autism spectrum, we may not be the best fit for those students either, because we rely and we teach in certain ways that are different from students who have other types of learning disability needs. So again, it's a very specific profile, and I hope that seems clear and precise to everybody what I've just described. When I talk about that cognitive ability, when you apply to Landmark School, we are looking for families to submit testing within the last few years of the date of application, so within 3 years. And we do specifically ask for the WISC, which stands for Wessler Intelligence Scale for Children. If a student is 16 or older, they may have the WACE, which is just the adult version of the WISC. So in terms of the areas of strength, I mentioned, our kids they have good comprehension. Our students get the information that's coming in. They may just struggle with the retrieval and the output of it, but they have the comprehension piece intact. And what's most important, I would say, for our students is this big picture thinking. We refer to it as fluid reasoning and the visual spatial integration. And that's when, language is removed, that ability to kind of see how the parts go together to make a whole, and to problem solve and reason. And that's really where our kids excel. And we need for that to be a main area of strength, because we're very visually based in the way we teach. Of course, we're multisensory, multimodal. We're using all of the modalities of auditory and visual and kinesthetic, but we very heavily and specifically rely on the visual modality. So we really need for the students to have strengths in those areas. And again, as I mentioned before, where we often see the discrepancy on the WISC testing is with the working memory and or processing speed maybe being a bit lower than those other areas of comprehension and reasoning and integration. So along with the cognitive testing, the WISC, we ask for measures of academic achievement testing, something that's looking at current levels of reading, writing, and math. We also ask for some measure of what we call psychosocial adjustment. Those are usually like rating scales that a parent and teachers, and oftentimes a self-report that the student completes that gives us information about levels of social skills and anxiety and attention, things like that. We certainly have students that come to Landmark with some lowered self-esteem and frustration due to, prior school struggles, but we really need to tease out and see that that is secondary and a result of the learning disability, and that's not a primary need. So we do ask for that. We do just a couple other quick things about our application process. We work on a rolling basis. There is no deadline. We keep in touch with you during the application process as you're submitting all of the required materials. Our office will be in touch through email to let you know what we have, what might still be outstanding, and once it is complete, we tell you that. The application is available on our website to download. It's a fillable app, and it's one application whether you're looking for our summer program specifically or our school year specifically, or possibly both. And if you're considering both, then there's a checkbox where you can indicate that you're looking at both summer and school year. So again, any questions at all about the specific application process, just be in touch with our office at any time and we will guide you through that. So what I'd like to do now is to get into talking about our program specifically at the high school, what's unique about Landmark High School, Landmark School in general, but Landmark High School, and what makes for a good language-based program. And one of the most important things to mention tonight is the amount of individualized attention that our students receive at Landmark. You know, for the 300 students we have at the high school, we have about 100 faculty. It's a 3-to-1 ratio. And that allows for every single student at Landmark who has any gaps in literacy skills to receive the daily one-to-one tutorial as part of their class schedule. It's not something that happens before or after school. It's part of the school day. So again, the goal of the tutorial is to remediate language and literacy skills. It's based off of a curriculum that's from a diagnostic of goals that again is completely individualized. So if one student really needs to work on, you know, basic phonological awareness and word attack and decoding skills, that's what's going to be the focus of their tutorial. If we have another student who is maybe working on some contextual reading fluency and writing skills and study skills, that would be the focus of their tutorial. And again, for the students who do come to Landmark with real gaps in basic literacy still, they would receive a specialized tutorial that's called an early literacy tutorial. They're utilizing a lot of the Linda Mood Bell LIPS program in that tutorial. If folks have heard about maybe like O.G. Orton Gillingham or Wilson, LIPS, these are all phonetic-based approaches towards teaching reading. And we don't ever want to have just one tool in the toolbox at Landmark. You know, not one program works best for everybody. So we want to make sure that we're pulling from a number of resources. We do pull from elements of Wilson. We use some Read Naturally and Great Leaps for fluency. We're you know, pulling in, if we need to, some visualizing and verbalizing techniques. But a lot of the students, and it's usually about 80 or so of the 300 students at our high school are in this specific early literacy tutorial working on the phonemic awareness. And if they don't need that, then they're in a more what we call traditional, we call it the Founders tutorial, where they're working on some other language and literacy skills. But this is really the hallmark of Landmark since we started in 1971, where, you know, it's our 50th year anniversary that's happening. And this is, you know, one of the key components of our program. Another thing that's really unique to Landmark is the way we group students in our classroom size. So we have 6 to 8 students as our average classroom size, sometimes even as small as 4. We cannot go beyond 8 students in the classroom. We are an approved program in the state of Massachusetts. That means that some of the students that come to Landmark receive funding from their districts. It's about 50% actually. So we cannot go beyond 8 in a classroom. And when we group students in classes, whether it's for, you know, English language arts or math or science, we're really looking at where are the levels of literacy and writing skills? Where is the working memory and processing speed? And we're grouping students based on that ability level. So, you know, we'll get calls all the time in the admission office asking, you know, is your sophomore 10th grade class full, or is your junior class full? And that's not how we admit students to Landmark. We take students until we're full as a school, or until all of our tutorial teaching periods are full. So it's really about, you know, we're not taking 18-year-old seniors and putting them with 14-year-old freshmen, but a grade up, grade down. We're really wanting to make sure that when a student is in a math class, for example, with 5 or 6 other kids, that they feel like they're receiving the right level of challenge, it's the right pace, that their fellow classmates are at the same skill level as them, and it really allows the teacher to gauge the pace of the class appropriately. So that's important and unique to Landmark. We do follow the MAS curriculum frameworks. As I mentioned, we're an approved program. That means that we are teaching all of those content area classes at our high school that students would have at any public high school. So, they're going through the algebra and geometry classes and US and world history and biology and chemistry. It's just that the way we're teaching those classes and the delivery of the content is quite different than sitting in a public school classroom of 25 students. So that's important. And our teachers, the students are being taught by teachers who have a master's in mild to moderate special education, or they may currently be on a waiver with the Department of Education working towards that certification and being directly supervised. So everybody has this highly specialized training of how to specifically support this population of student. In terms of our approach, being a language-based school, what that means is that we're really skill-based and that we really want to employ this direct and explicit instruction. And consistently across curriculum is really important and key. It's not helpful for these students to have each subject teacher teaching them a different way to do things. We want them to have consistency so that they can internalize skills. We can start to remove some of that structure, knowing they can implement more independently these skills that they're being taught. So what does that mean? Let me just go back to this for 1 second. That means that, we're having content being taught in the classroom, less of the teacher saying, okay, go, learn these or read these 10 pages of your text independently and learn this information. It's really the teacher teaching that information directly in the classroom, and then the students getting a chance with homework to practice and reinforce those skills. And again, with it being very visually based and consistent. So that's our approach. In terms of the programs that we offer at our high school campus, I want to take a few minutes to talk about this. So we are a college preparatory high school. I mentioned again, all of our students are really bright and they are college bound. So the program that the student goes into when they enter Landmark High School really has nothing to do with how bright they are. They're all really smart. What we do when we take a student to Landmark High School is we really try to, again, individualize their program, figure out where the strengths are, but also figure out where the needs are and try to meet them at that level so that we can remediate those needs. And we do have students coming to Landmark High School with different skill sets in place or not in place. So we will do, not only are we looking at the independent testing that you've submitted, but we will also do a screening where we will do some informal measures and figure out what program is going to be best for the student to start off in at Landmark High School. So the first program I want to mention is our Founders Program. The largest majority of the students at Landmark High School are placed in the Founders Program. This is our traditional program. And for the students in Founders, they are taking a math, science, social studies, and English language arts class. They all receive the one-to-one tutorial every day. And these are 50-minute classes. It's the same set schedule every day. We don't rotate. We're not on a 6-day cycle or, rotating classes. If a student has math assigned first period, they're going to have math every day, first period, Monday through Friday. Again, 50-minute classes. So that tutorial is part of the school day. It's one of the 50-minute classes. And then there's a 6th academic in the day that we will determine based on a student's profile and learning needs. So is this a student that requires an additional small group reading class on top of their tutorial? If not, maybe they need a study skills class or a specific literature class to build vocabulary. So we will figure this out, again, looking at a student's profile. And I do want to mention for parents and especially students tuning in to listen to this tonight that, of course, we want to give you a break in the day, something fun, and there is an elective period. And after we get through the meat of the academic program, we will certainly get to all the extracurriculars and the fun stuff that we offer at Landmark High School. So that's our Founders Program. In the Expressive Language Program, we have close to 100 students, usually in the Expressive Language Program. As you can see by the class listing, it's very similar: math, science, social studies, English language arts, and the one-to-one tutorial. The main difference for the students in the Founders Program versus the Expressive Language Program is that the students in the Expressive Language Program have been identified as having some specific struggles with that language processing production piece. They struggle with what we call expressive language, oral expression, that word retrieval, output, and formulation of language. So they have an oral expression class in their day where they're working on those strategies, those word retrieval strategies, the vocabulary development, the understanding of multiple meanings in figurative language. And so that's a specific class that these students will have. So there isn't much difference in their day between, again, the Founders and the Expressive Language students, besides that one class, that 6th academic. And there's certainly room for students to move within the programs as they make progress at Landmark. The third program is called our PrEP program, and I want to take a few minutes to talk about our PrEP program. We have usually around 50 full-time students in the PrEP. The PrEP program was designed to kind of mirror a more traditional private prep school, but still utilize all of the great Landmark multisensory teaching methodology with a focus on really building study skills, higher level essay and research writing skills, and some of those higher level inferential reading comprehension strategies. So when we look to see if the PrEP program is appropriate for a student, what we need to determine is this a student who is reading at grade level? They no longer require the remediation of the one-to-one tutorial to develop those decoding, encoding, and reading fluency skills. They're able to put together a multi-paragraph essay. They have a good sense of basic paragraph structure. But these students are still struggling with some of those, again, those higher level executive function and study skills. So what their schedule looks like, as you can see, there's no one-to-one tutorial here because, again, these students no longer require direct reading remediation. So they're taking math and science and social studies. They have a grammar and composition class for their ELA. And then they specifically take literature and study skills. And so, again, the main difference here is that there is no longer a one-to-one tutorial. Sometimes we'll have students that are accepted to Landmark High School directly into the PrEP program because maybe they aren't classically dyslexic. Maybe there isn't an actual or specific reading disability, but they have a disorder of written expression and they struggle with the executive function and the processing speed. And so that student might go directly into the PrEP program. Sometimes we have students that start off in our Founders program or even Expressive Language, and they may gain a lot of, they may make a lot of progress and gain skills. And after a year or two, no longer require the tutorial and be ready to transition into the PrEP program. So those are our 3 programs at the high school. And they're all amazing programs, and the students do come together for math and science. So there is no separate, Expressive Language and Founders and PrEP math and science. There are just different level, different paced classes, and we, put students in the appropriate level class for those content areas of math and science. So in terms of study skills, this is incorporated and integrated in everything that we do. Of course, there are the specific study skills classes, and we really try to have almost all of our seniors take a senior study skills class that's really going to expose them to, what it's going to be like at the post-secondary level. They start to use and be exposed to Canvas, which is some of the programs that are used at the post-secondary, college level. We teach them how to deal with a syllabus, how to look at long-term research writing assignments and cumulative exams, and they're working on all of that. But study skills is embedded throughout every class, all throughout the 4 years of high school at Landmark. And they're consistently being taught, how do you effectively preview relevant vocabulary in your text? How do you take good 2-column notes? What's the 5-step writing process? How does that look from going from a brainstorm to an outline, to a rough draft, to an edit, to a final draft? What are effective test-taking strategies? And again, consistency of the templates that we use, the graphic organizers that we use, so that the students can really internalize these skills. Another thing that's unique about our program is the role of the academic advisor. This is not a guidance counselor. I'll talk about those folks in a minute. We have that. The academic advisor is the person who's overseeing the student's academic caseload, their schedule. So they work very closely with the tutorial teacher for the students in their caseload, and they help to develop that diagnostic of goals, and they'll go in and observe the tutorial and monitor the student's progress and adjust goals as needed. For any students in their caseload who might be funded from their school system, they'll write the IEPs. And it's the academic advisor, it's the main contact for parents, guardians, and students. So anything that comes up, if a student is in a class the first month of school and they feel like the level class they're in is too difficult or too easy, they can talk to their advisor. If they were to get to school one day, if they're a day student and they realize they've left their homework binder at home by accident, they can go find their advisor. And again, for parents, you getting those updates as often as you want them to be, how they're doing. Are they actively participating in class? Are they keeping up with their homework? All of that. So the advisor stays with the student during their years at Landmark. It's not a new person every year. And the student really develops a nice, close relationship. It's a person that they feel like they, get to know well and they can go to for anything that comes up. We certainly have a guidance and transition office. Like I said, we're a full-fledged, preparatory high school, and getting the students ready for that transition is really important to us. And so transition planning starts as early as 9th grade, and students are doing interest inventories, and, we're meeting with them and talking to them about areas of again, interest and passions that they might want to pursue and think about at the post-secondary level. Starting junior year is when students will have weekly one-to-one meetings. It's very personalized support. We're helping students to identify, what type of colleges they might be interested in going to, the level of support they may need or not need, a smaller school with more support, a bigger school with less support, depending upon what the student is ready for. They help to, the student to get their applications, work on their essays, get their letters of recommendation. So it's a very supportive, hands-on process. 100% of our students that apply, which is pretty much everybody, gets accepted. Typically between 94 and 96% of our students are heading off to college. Some may choose the workforce, some may choose military, some may choose a gap year, but the large majority of our students are heading off to colleges and universities. In terms of homework at Landmark School, students do have homework every night. It's always a practice and review of the skills and content that have been taught and addressed in the classroom. The goal is that we want students to feel successful in doing their homework. We want them to feel independent. We want them to feel like they can really, sit down and tackle their work, and it's very manageable and it's not a source of frustration. So typically the underclassmen, 9th, 10th grade, will have about an hour and a half a night. It's usually about 20 minutes per subject. Upperclassmen, juniors and seniors might have 2+ hours to do. So it increases a bit more. We're trying to get you ready for a heavier workload after high school. But again, the goal is for you to feel independent and successful with your homework. It does count as a big chunk of your grade. It's important students are getting it done and turned in. It's a third of the grade for our high school students. So that's important. And we do have a homework makeup policy in place. If a student misses an assignment, they would go after school to get caught up. And there are folks, the academic advisors, supervising that homework makeup and there to support the student if they need it. So that's our homework. And what I'd like to do now is to start to talk about after school, all the fun stuff, the life at Landmark, whether you're a day student or a resident, what that looks like. Hopefully people feel like they have a good sense so far of the academic day, which runs from 7:50 to 3:15. And as I mentioned, it's those 50-minute classes. So after school, we have typically about between 40 to 50% of our students living on campus as residents. Obviously, this year is different with COVID, with the pandemic, but we're planning to be up and running fully for our 21-22 school year with our residential program. And then usually between 50 to 60% of our 300 students at the high school commute as day students. And for anybody commuting as a day student, we highly recommend and encourage day students to stay on campus after school gets out at 3:15 to take part in sports, music, visual arts, auto shop, wood shop, STEAM lab. There are so many opportunities of activities happening after school. And I'd say over 95% of our day students do stay and participate in activities. They can be on campus as late as they need to be. A lot of them stay through supper, or even if they can't be picked up until later on in the evening, we can support them in study hall on campus. So there are lots of options for the day students to be very involved and be a part of the community and life at Landmark after school gets out at 3:15. For our boarding students, we have a residential curriculum that we're really proud of that really helps to support students in gaining some really excellent life skills that they will take with them at the post-secondary level and in the future. And we work on something called a level system, or off something called a level system, where we're promoting effective time management, organization, self-advocacy, and healthy decision-making skills. The goal is that students enter, if they're coming as a residential student, they enter with more structure, more support, starting off at level 1. There are more reminders about getting out on time in the morning for breakfast, for example, having lights out on time at night by 10 o'clock, for example. They're at their desks during study hall at night with their door open. Teachers live and work in the dorms, so we have house parents and other live-in faculty. Everybody who works residentially is a teacher as well, and they're helping to support through structured study and all of that. So every few weeks, as students are meeting the day-to-day expectations of being on time, of asking for help when needed, of being productive and organized during study hall, getting their homework done and turned in, all of those things, then they get to move up the levels every few weeks and they gain privileges and more independence and freedom. So for example, if a student is really taking care of business, then, by Thanksgiving break, they might already be up to level 4 or 5. At level 5, a student could have a fridge and TV in their room. They could have food delivered. They have a later bedtime. They can shut their door during study hall and be on their bed. So there are all these privileges that they earn, but they also need to be showing themselves as to be, mature, responsible members of the community. There's a certain amount of community service that's involved at the upper levels of 5 and 6. And again, if a student is at an upper level and they're not getting their homework done, let's say, and they're getting signed up every day for homework makeup, they could end up dropping a level and losing some privileges. So that's our residential curriculum that happens from starting Sunday night through Thursday night. And then Friday, we start our weekends, trips, activities. Again, you know, things aren't happening right now with the pandemic, but once we're back in action, we're really lucky with our location being 30 minutes north of Boston, being near our local mountains in the wintertime for skiing and snowboarding, being near the ocean in nice weather. So there are tons of options for weekend trips. So let's talk a little bit about pursuing some of the passions that students have at Landmark, the electives that are options during the school day, and also the afternoon activities. With our visual arts department, we have all kinds of 2D and 3D media art. We have drawing and painting and printmaking and ceramics and digital art and photography. And again, these are elective options during the school day. And they're also options for students after school if they want to be in the art building after school as their afternoon activity. The Performing Arts Department offers chorus, dance, drama, theater tech, for students who want to build sets and do lighting and sound and costumes. We have music lessons happening after school. Again, options as electives during the school day and available as afternoon activities if a student isn't doing a sport. In terms of our athletic program, we have an amazing, robust 3 seasons of athletics available to our students. We have in the fall, soccer, cross country, and golf, and girls volleyball. In the winter, we offer wrestling, basketball, swim team, and indoor track. And in the spring, we offer lacrosse, tennis, baseball, and softball, outdoor track, and sailing. So there are a lot of options for athletics, and we do compete with other private schools in the area. We are a competitive league. We offer, JV and varsity level sports. We have a working auto mechanics shop on campus with the car lift and everything. We have an amazing wood shop where the students work on all kinds of independent woodworking projects, and there's boat building. We have a great technology STEAMworks lab for students to pursue things such as, like robotics related stuff and programming and animation and all kinds of things there. So again, options as elective classes and options as afternoon activities if a student is not doing a sport after school. And then we have a fantastic community service program happening at the high school. Many hours of community service that these students are doing. We have service trips during vacations in the springtime. Kids are doing so much local volunteer work with organizations like Beverly Bootstraps, and they're helping, volunteering to rake elderly folks' lawns and, working at daycare centers and doing Adopt a Highway and food drives and all kinds of things. So we're very active with community service at Landmark as well. And that's pretty much about the school year, what I want to talk about, pretty much it. What I'd like to do now is just take a few minutes to talk about our wonderful summer program. I know I'm almost out of time here, but we have a 4-week summer program at Landmark. Students entering grades 8 through 12 will attend for the summer. It's usually around 50 students we have for summer, so it's smaller than the school year. The students will have 4 classes in the earlier part of the day until lunchtime. They are an hour each. So everybody over the summer has their English language arts class. They have a math class. Every student gets that one-to-one individualized tutorial, that language-based tutorial. And then the 4th class is either an extra reading class if that's what the student needs, or they take a study skills class. And again, we determine that. After lunch, there's a structured study hall in the afternoon. So that's different than during the school year where we have our study hall in the evening. And then after that happens, after the study hall, there are options for afternoon, late afternoon activities. We've had things like visual arts program. We've had a sea kayaking and paddleboarding program. We've had, or activity, I should say. We've had marine science, photography, kids doing fitness and spinning. So a lot of options for activities. And then we have community nights. The larger majority of our students typically will board for the summer. We do have some day students as well. Sometimes students who are going to be new in the fall are coming for the summer program first to use it as a transition into our school year program. And sometimes the students that come for summer are maybe doing okay where they are for the school year, but could really use a boost in skills for the summer. And just to mention, we're still making, and discussing what our summer program this upcoming 2021 summer will look like based on where we are with the pandemic and vaccines and all of that, in terms of, whether we're going to have the full boarding program up and running, whether we're just going to have a day program, how that will look. So certainly apply, and we will keep you updated as to how that's going to unfold. And I think I'm pretty much out of time, and I got through most everything. And I will hand it back over to Katie.
Thanks, Mel. Great job. So everyone, that was a lot of information to digest. So as you process it, don't worry about asking a question that you think might have already been addressed. We're happy to circle back to any of this important content. I'd like to shift gears though and introduce some of our administrators who have joined the call, starting with our headmaster, Bob Bruto.
Thank you, Katie. And Mel, that was amazing. Have you done that before?
Just a few times.
That was great. So I'm so grateful that so many people are on this call tonight. And I wonder what family is the furthest away from us. We're in Pride's Crossing right now. And if you want to send in the chat, who is the furthest away? That will be interesting to me. But I want you to try to visualize what Mel just talked about and think about walking on a campus that feels and looks and is a traditional school with classes all day and after-school activities and Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you very much. And athletics and performing arts and boat building, a traditional school that is specialized in a medical remedial model for academics. So we diagnose every student's learning profile. We prescribe a program that's right for that student, and that's what they get in their tutorial, in their class structure, and we can take it day by day in terms of their progress. And it's really individualized. So there are no two students in our school that have the same program. We don't have a Wilson reading program or a Linda Mood Bell reading program or anything that's specific. We have something that's designed for every student. So within what feels like and is a traditional school experience for every student, it's also a very specialized, diagnostic, prescriptive, remedial, customized, individualized program for every student. And it levels the playing field. Every student feels seen, heard, and accepted for who they are, and they can learn and move as fast as possible. So it's like Melody said, we have kids who come to us as 9th graders, as 10th graders. They stay for a couple of years. Maybe they move on. We have kids who stay for 4 years. But every student who applies to college by the time they graduate gets accepted to several. And that's just an exciting thing. So I'll end by saying I have been here since Landmark opened in 1971. That's 50 years. But there's a reason for that. It's because you see the growth in these students, the excitement of the faculty in helping that growth happen, and graduations that take place that you just can't help but cry at. So it's very, very exciting, and it's a dynamic place with faculty who just care. They come for one reason. It's mission driven. We're going to help these kids. So I'll be here, happy to answer any questions. And if you have questions afterwards and want to call me, text me, email me, that's okay too. So thank you. It's good to see you all.
Thanks for joining us, Bob. I'd like to also introduce the head of the high school, William Barrett.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you here. I was not at Landmark in 1971. However, this is my 25th year at Landmark High School and my 6th year as head of the high school. I will say my wife, Christine, is a department head. We met as teachers, as full-time teachers. It is her 25th year as well. We have 3 sons, and our middle son actually went to Landmark for 2 years. So I think as I share insights or answer your questions, it's, from a professional viewpoint over 25 years, but I think it's also from a personal viewpoint because we are a Landmark family in that sense. So it's great to have you here as a parent. Again, I know this is a big decision and you have to do your homework and that's important. So, I think one of the questions I'll take on while I have the microphone, I think was how is Landmark handling remote learning, which is kind of the $1 million question really, because every school is so different. There is no one model that you can say schools are doing this. At Landmark High School, we have 272 students currently, and 40 of those students are actually fully remote. So geographically, they can't access campus or they're staying home for safety reasons. And so those students are with us every day in their classrooms remotely. We also have about 50 students, I believe, that number can fluctuate, that are hybrid. And what that essentially means is we have students that have long drives. So some of them are coming to campus 2 to 3 days a week, or we have students that are staying in hotels, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then going home for Thursday and Friday and coming back. And then we have students that are full-time day students that are able to access campus 5 days a week. And I think what's incredible is Rob Genitelli, you haven't met him yet, but Rob and I, we're in the front circle every morning for drop-off and for pickup. And we're around there just greeting people, saying hi to kids, making sure everyone's distancing and keeping their masks on and everything. And it's incredible. We see parent carpools with kids who are potted. We see parents, that are dropping off and then heading to work and just, the efforts of the community, especially the parents who some of them have moved and rented homes or sent their children to live with relatives so they can access our campus. It's been incredible. And then if I think about our staff, as we walk around campus, almost every classroom has a student in it who is remote or several students. And so our teachers, as they lesson plan for a highly specialized program, it's incredible what they're doing to accommodate the learning needs of students that are remote, students that are in person a couple of days a week, and then students that are with us every day. So it's truly a community effort. And so, this is an interesting year to be looking at schools because I feel like you're going to learn a lot about the character of the school, the community, and its staff based on what they're doing. So, thank you again for being here. It's good to be talking to you.
Thanks, Bill. Since you referenced Rob Genitelli, I'll let him introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Genitelli. I'm the Dean of Students here on the high school campus, and I'm celebrating my 25th year as the Dean of Students here on the campus. My job encompasses pretty much everything and anything that occurs on a boarding school campus, whether it's 6 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning. That kind of goes with the territory. I've raised my 2 children. My wife and I live on campus. Both of our children grew up on the campus and find it an amazing community to live and work in. Funny story for me is when I first came to Landmark School, I told my wife, we'd be here 3, 4, maybe 5 years tops before we would move on and I would kind of continue in my career path somewhere. And then obviously 25 years later, she kind of throws that in my face every now and then that we haven't moved very often. We've stayed put. And that's really a testament to the community of students and faculty and the community of Landmark family that binds us all here together. So welcome aboard. It's good to have everyone here.
Thanks, Rob. And then I think our final administrator on the call tonight is John Fierick. John, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. It's very nice to see so many people here tonight. So again, my name is John. I arrived at Landmark School in 1996. I've actually had quite a few roles. I'm currently our interim academic dean at the high school campus. I began as a classroom teacher 23 years ago. I've done some coaching. I worked in the residential program. I've been an academic advisor. For the past 9 years, I was our public school liaison for all of the 766 students that come to us from a variety of Massachusetts public schools. and very, very much enjoying working very closely with our other academic dean this year, monitoring our academic program. So very excited with how things have been going and to see everybody here tonight.
Thank you, guys. Perfect timing. We now have all of our students on the call. So I'll let them say hello. And again, feel free to use that chat bar and keep peppering us with your thoughtful questions. Eric, would you like to introduce yourself, your name, where you're from? Just a little background would be great.
I'm Eric. I'm currently a junior. I'm from the state of Vermont, up near Burlington. I came here as a sophomore. Last year, I was residential. This year, I am a fully remote student. Last year, I played soccer. I played basketball. I was going to play baseball, but COVID had other plans. And then this year, I also joined student council for the first time. And I came from a public school beforehand.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate you guys giving up your evening. Normally this is during the school day and they're happy to volunteer to get out of class. So this is a little bit of a stretch for them. Ethan Kerr, can you say hello?
Hello, everyone. I'm Ethan. I'm a senior. I currently live in Acton, Massachusetts. I came here when I was a freshman. I came from the Carroll School. And what was the other question? Oh, things I do on campus. I am a part of student council, intercultural club, stock club. As of right now, those are the only after school activities that are running that I participate. I'm also generally in either performing arts or the wrestling team or the sailing team or a few other different clubs on campus. Yeah, and to Mrs. Chu's point, generally speaking, I'm very happy to get out of 7th period class. But yeah.
Thanks for being here, Ethan.
Katie, can I just jump for a minute? Ethan, it's probably wiser to make a dig towards your 7th period teacher after the 2nd quarter grades have been received, not in the middle of midterms and grading that, just for the record.
All right, Ellie, you get to go and don't upset anyone.
Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm a senior. I'm also from Massachusetts. I came here my freshman year. I actually came from the same school as Ethan. And I played volleyball, I did community service, and I danced.
Thanks for being here, Ellie. All right, so what questions do we have for the students? These guys have a lot of varied experiences and will speak really candidly about life at Landmark. So, and there are some students on the call, so students, bonus points if you're brave enough to ask a question. You're welcome to unmic if you'd rather just verbalize your question, or you can put it in the chat bar. Let me see if there's any questions.
Hello. Katie, one of the questions that came up in the chat during Mel's presentation was about how you see other kids from different programs within the Founders Expressive Language or PrEP. And we explain it, but we always like to hear it from the kids. So do you see other kids from other programs? Are you aware of what programs kids are in? Ethan, want to take a try at that?
Yeah, so I've been in every single program except the Expressive language program. So I kind of have a little bit of experience. Like I've been in the early literacy program for my first 2 years. Last year I was just in the Founders program. Now I'm Founders and Prep. So I do see a lot of different faces on campus. And honestly, it's really not that like different. Like you don't really know who's like in this program or in that program. The only things that are like, I guess like different is that like you won't sometimes be in the same building as someone else, but that's just how a campus would be. So the residential program does a good job when we did have that. It was just like everyone was in it. Like I was in different programs than my roommate, but we were still good, you know, friends, and different people in my dorm or other dorms. And even like those kind of like sectionalities of dorms and programs aren't really like a thing at campus. It's very interchangeable. Like we'll have kids that do multiple different programs, multiple different sports, they'll change houses even, except once you get to Porter, because that is the best dorm, but that's besides the point. But yeah, it's very not like cut and dry in that sense.
Great description, Ethan. Do you guys have anything to add to that? Pretty thorough. Good. Let's see. So it says, yeah.
I have a question. Hi, my name's Thomas. I had a question for Eric, as of he went to public school before Landmark. I was wondering how Landmark compares to public schools. So that was what I was sort of wondering.
For me, the biggest difference straight off the bat was class size and the inability to sit in the back of the class on my phone and do whatever I want. Because I came in and my very first class was a tutorial class, which is one-on-one. And what are the chances that your tutorial teachers is not going to know if you did your homework or not? Zero. They're going to know if you did your homework or not. But not only are they, and not just going to be like, oh, why didn't you do your homework and scold you? They're going to be like, okay, how can we create a system so you remember to do your homework, so you do your homework and help you? So one, they know like if you did something right and they can help you build on what you did right. And if you did something wrong, they know if you did something wrong and help you build on that. And not only do they do that, they like actually like sit down with you and be like, okay, let's create a plan to let's continue to build on your strengths, but let's also build up your weaknesses. So don't run around avoiding them the whole time, and you get better. And eventually like your weaknesses slowly become like almost strengths. Like I was an awful writer before, and now I feel like I'm kind of getting more confident with it. And confidence is another thing that I think I attest to, which has been like down here freshman year, and now I'm like a lot higher than I was before. So that's the biggest difference: class sizes and the ability to help.
Great question. Good answer, Eric. There's a question from Lindsay about how we're supporting students and looking at kind of leveled for different classes. John Feerick, as from the academic realm, do you want to kind of speak to that?
Sure. When I first saw that question, my initial thought was going back to what Mr. Bruto had said. I think that in combination with what Ethan had said, that every program for every student is individualized. So I think that's why, as Ethan was describing, it's pretty seamless in terms of moving from class to class, and that every group is very intentionally placed together because they're working on the same things. With regard to the distinctive different programs, I think each program does have a certain emphasis. So, you know, our Founders Program, we're going to have students that still have the one-to-one tutorial, and they're really looking at continuing to build the literacy skills. The Prep Program, we're probably getting somewhere closer to grade level with literacy, and we're focusing on executive function skills, to use just two basic examples. But I think that in general, those differences, as Ethan described very well, I love and hate when Ellie and Ethan and Eric are here, because they say things so well and sometimes almost better than I could. But they really painted a good picture there about that individualized nature of their program, making this kind of invisible and seamless.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, can I ask a follow-up? Because do you start in, because sorry, I am a total visual learner. So like I'm seeing this as like a program and trying to understand. So do you come in and start, like, do you get accepted in one program and then you move throughout the program? I guess that's why I'm confused. Sorry, my son's coming from Carroll and they keep talking about one specific program. And so then when I hear that you can be in all the different programs, it's confusing to me. So I'm sorry to take up another minute of your time. Ethan's like, wait, I want to
talk. Ethan, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, only because I went to Carroll and I remember being in like that position, with like having like all these different things. So Mr. Feerick will probably definitely mention this, but like it's not one program you're accepted to, and it's not just like one program. Like you don't like start, like the first level isn't, you know, early literacy. That's like not how it works. It's a very like more like a raw, it's more this way than is this horizontal versus linear. There's the words. But yeah, like at Carroll, it was that one kind of program and there was like a little bit difference, but I remember like they would pick classes for each student that would work best for them. That's kind of at Landmark, but since there's more students, administratively, there's like different programs. I guess that's kind of how I would describe it. But it's, if you get, you said your son's coming from Carroll, if he comes on Landmark campus, there's not going to be a huge difference academically speaking. From when I did it, it's feeling the classes are still small, you still have tutorial, but some of the things that they're targeting are going to be a little bit different, but you're not going to feel like this is like a whole new school, and a whole new different things. They complement each other well. So it's not one program is better than the other or level above. No. I thought that first, and I was like terrified of all those prep kids. And I was like, what is going on? And then I got to know them, and they were like, okay, no, they're not actually that. No.
I mean, the admissions folks are constantly doing an amazing job at again, as Mr. Bruto said, the diagnostic and prescriptive model is really that at square one, we're looking at all the information available to us from previous placements, and they're saying this is exactly what the student needs, and we're going to build a program. And whether that's identifying specific classes within one or more programs, that's what gets built for that student.
It's also based on the student profile as well. So I'm in the admissions office, and what we do is we look at the evaluations. If somebody's had a speech and language evaluation and has a diagnosis that of a mixed receptive expressive language disability, we may look at them for the expressive language program. Sometimes kids coming out of Carroll have gotten their skills up to a level that they can perform well in the prep program. So it really is, it's so individualized that, but we have sort of three venues. Even though we take a narrow cross section of kids with specific language-based needs, we can put them in a program that they're going to benefit from and grow from.
Thank you.
No, I'm glad we spent time on this. It's really kind of at the core of everything we do. So good question, Lindsay. So Ellie, there's a question about boarding and day students, and a little context. Ellie was a day student this year. She would have been a boarder. So can you talk about kind of that relationship between day students and boarders?
The first couple of weeks, it's a little awkward because you're still trying to like adjust to school, but I made friends with a lot of my friends who were residents really quickly. Like my classes, like I started eating lunch with this random girl, and then I eventually got introduced to her entire friend group, and then we all like became one large group. So I feel like there is no divide really, because I used to hang out in her dorm room all the time after school. So I feel like it's just it's very knit no matter like which program you decide to choose, if you decide to live on campus or if you decide to go home.
Thanks, Ellie. Great answer. Let's see. There's other questions we missed. Boarding students, I think I can quickly talk to that. Each year we have around 20 different states represented and usually a handful of different countries. Boy-girl ratio, Libby, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're heavier on the boy side, closer, 55-60% to girls. And I think that was it for that question. Let's see if I've missed any. Maybe Bill, can you talk to about faculty diversity training?
Absolutely, yeah. I think what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about the high school, and then Bob may want to jump in because we have some dual campus initiatives that are currently going on that are pretty exciting. But we have on the high school campus the diversity and inclusion advocates, which are a group of faculty and administrators, and they have really been leading the charge in a sense for the past couple of years, but especially the past 6 months in terms of meeting, sharing materials, resources, recommending trainings. I think in the past week, there have been 3 or 4 trainings that people have gone to from both campuses, shared notes, taken notes, shared documents. So in terms of a faculty-wide training, that's something we're looking at pretty carefully. It's something now, as you can imagine, many of us in administrative positions are getting a ton of material about this presentation, that presentation, and that's something we're going about pretty carefully. And Bob and I participated through NAIS in a training actually this week about how to survey our entire community. So when I talk about that, I'm talking about the high school campus as well as the elementary middle school campus, because there is a diversity group on that campus as well. They are working with their faculty and with their students, and then these two groups are collaborating together and sharing ideas. So again, it's a pretty exciting time, and maybe Bob, I'll pass it to you, and you can kind of share a little bit about what we talked about on Monday with NAIS.
Thanks, Bill. As Bill said, we have two campuses, and both campuses have diversity teams. The elementary middle school campus is grades 2 through 8, high schools 9 through 12. So they're working on curriculum development, they're working on training for students and for faculty. And as Bill said, we were on a call the other day with the National Association of Independent Schools. They have an AIM survey, which is an assessment of inclusivity and multiculturalism. And we're going to do that with our entire community. So that includes our faculty, our students, our parents, and just get a sense of what are people feeling about this whole issue of diversity and inclusivity. And from that, what things can we take that we can learn from, that we can grow from? And I also communicate with and involved with about 20 other independent schools in our area. And we talk about programs, we talk about diversity, we talk about ways that we can support each other, as well as in the city of Beverly. The city itself is working on diversity issues, racism issues, and we're involved in that with what they're doing. So when we work with the city, what Landmark does goes out. When we work with them, what they do comes in. And one of the questions I just saw, we do not have a director of diversity as we speak. But we're looking at bringing in a new position of human resources that would include Title IX training, that would include diversity initiatives, that would include so many other things that are important to our schools. But there are people on both campuses, teams of both campuses, working very hard on this issue. And NIS, I think we've done this diversity, if you will, this inclusion survey years ago. We're going to do it again, and I think we will learn so much about how our internal community feels and what things we can do to take next steps to make it even stronger.
Great. Glad we talked about that. All right, more questions coming in. Libby, do you want to explain the address the question about students entering Landmark as seniors?
Sure. As Mel said, we fill our high school until we're full, and that oftentimes includes kids coming in later. They try their high school and do their best, and it's just not working. And we understand that. We're very careful about accepting kids for senior year only. Because we know there's a trajectory on for after Landmark. We don't have a postgraduate program. We do the best we do with the 4 years of high school. So we look at where a student is in terms of their literacy skills, in terms of their academic motivation, in terms of where they need, how much work they need to do, but in that 1 year. So it's really individualized. John, do you want to follow up with a little, or Bill, on that?
I think you said it really well, Libby. I think it really depends on the individual. I think that's a real kind of case by case kind of situation, but you captured everything that I would have said for that.
One thing I will add to that is that when we do accept a senior in, and the student is instantly integrated into our guidance department, which does all our college planning. So our guidance department reaches out to the family as soon as they're accepted, basically in the early summer. And so they can work on a college plan for them or a transition plan for after Landmark with them. So that hasn't been an issue, but it's more on what can be done in 1 year is the biggest question. So good question though.
Yeah, I'll just throw in there, just to add on to what John said, it really does depend on the student and how well they transition, in a sense. You think about it, it's a 10-month school year. So if a student settles in pretty slowly, we may find ourselves saying halfway through the year, wow, we wish we had this student for another year, in a sense, because they're buying in. we're finally able to see them access the program. If they're a student that settles in rather quickly and transitions well between programs and teachers and friends and things like that, then it might be a different story. So I just throw that out there. Again, like I said, it's difficult to know without knowing the profile of the child.
So in interest of time, I think I want to try to wrap up. I'd love to end with the students because, you know, you guys are the main act. I think you're what everyone comes for. Because there are a number of students on the call, my thought was to give you guys the mic, and I want you to message what you think they should know about Landmark. So if there's one piece of information about Landmark that the students on the call should know, what would you share with them? Whoever's got their idea can go first.
Ethan, you can talk about the dress code.
I would say extracurriculars are a huge part of the Landmark community. Even after, like, once you get level, I think it's 4 or 5, you don't technically need to do an extracurricular, except I don't think I know a single person who's not a part of some after campus club, sport, or anything. There are occasional day students who like live far away and they go home after school, which is understandable, but many people, including day students, they stay after campus, they participate in sports, and it's a huge part of like the Landmark community in bringing us together. And you make friends with kids that aren't necessarily in your classes, but you're sharing the basketball team, or you're on the soccer team, or you're in the art club or something like that. So it's a huge part of our community, and they're a lot of fun, and they're good.
Great. Ethan or Ellie, what do you have?
I would say that going to Landmark allows you to follow your dreams and like go to college if that's what you want to do, or do a post-grad year or whatever you want to do. Because I know a lot of people when they come, they're like, oh, I don't know if I can go to college. Like, I don't know if I can graduate. I don't know if I have the stats. I don't know if I have anything. But like the guy in Startman does such a nice job with like your college stuff. Like I give them a 10 out of 10 on it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellie. Ethan, what's your takeaway? What do you want them folks to leave with tonight?
So definitely echoing what Ellie and Eric said was perfect. I would also just add that like I did not want to go to Landmark, was going kicking and screaming, didn't like was not going to do it. I was not going to have it. I came in once I actually like was like, okay, I'm going to like just do my work. I actually wasn't even doing my work, it was just being in the dorms that actually helped that. But it was just a lot of fun being on campus, and also just working and learning with teachers. Like I've made a lot of academic progression, and just like it's scary, and it's like I did not want it. Like can't stress that enough. But it was just awesome. I really, really enjoyed my time because, like, you know, Eric alluded to, like everyone's involved in the campus, everyone's doing it, everyone, you know, maybe not like the first few months, but like after that, everyone like wants to be here. And you just kind of become like one big like family. Like, you know, everyone here. There's not really like, oh, there's those people over there and these people over here. No, it's kind of just one community. It's just awesome. Good fun. But, you know, sometimes 7th period is a little rough, but that's okay.
You got it in there. All right, students, thank you so much for giving up your evening. You're only 13 minutes into Bachelorette, so, you know, Ethan, you can catch the rest, I'm sure, or DVR it. But we appreciate everyone giving up their Tuesday evening to learn more about Landmark. And I'll send it back to Melody to wrap up. But we're absolutely available to you. So if you have other questions start percolating this evening, please reach out, and we'll put you in touch with the appropriate people. Back to you, Bella.
Thank you so much, Katie. Thanks for moderating. And again, the students are awesome. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for giving up your time tonight, and also for the administrators for being here as well. But especially to all of you families, thanks for listening and learning more about our school. please email or call the admission office anytime with additional questions. There is so much information, and I know we threw a lot your way tonight. There are a number of other things that we probably didn't get to. So just any questions that you think about after this evening, like I said, call or email. As I mentioned, just to reiterate from the beginning, our admission process, we work on a rolling basis. There is no deadline, but the sooner you can start to get us application materials, the better. You don't have to have a completed package all at one time. Start filling out the application itself, get that turned in. We will keep in touch with you through email about what we have, what's still needed, and really walk you through that process. So we look forward to getting information about your student and learning more about them, and keeping in touch with you. So thank you.